Donald Trump won 30 states, and they have never accepted it and have been out to get him since then. We cannot allow these people to get power. The country's future is at stake. This is the most important election in our history coming up. It's an election as to whether we're going to survive or whether the Democrats are going to destroy America. And I shudder to think what will happen if you have Biden and a radical VP and Chuck Schumer in charge in the Senate, Nancy Pelosi in the House, and 99% of the corrupt media behind them. That is a scenario we need to work night and day to prevent. All right, Jeff Crouere here. Great to be with you on America's Voice. Thanks so much to our viewers for joining us. We'll be back on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend to all of you. And our listeners on WGSO, hang on. A lot more Ringside coming your way right here on the radio in New Orleans. Quick time out. We'll take care of some business. We'll be right back.
Well, the virus has now killed more than 100 people in China, and new cases have been confirmed around the world.
So you don't want to frighten the American public.
France and South Korea have also got evacuation plans.
But you need to prepare for and assume.
Strongly warning Americans to avoid all non-essential travel to China.
That this is going to be a real serious problem.
France, Australia, Canada, the US, Singapore, Cambodia, Vietnam, the list goes on.
Health officials are investigating more than 100 possible cases in the US.
Germany, a man has contracted the virus.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
Japan, where a bus driver contracted the virus.
Coronavirus has killed more than 100 people there and infected more than 4,500.
We have to prepare for the worst, always, because if you don't and the worst happens.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome to War Room Pandemic, episode 153. I'm Raheem Kassam, sitting in for Stephen K. Bannon, who is on special assignment today. Got the whole rest of the team here in the studio on Capitol Hill. Jason Miller, Jack Maxey, Greg Manns is in the War Room. We have our old producer, Dan, on the show today. Avish also on special assignment. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning. It's May the 1st. The year of our Lord 2020, and we have a packed out show for you today. Lots going on out there on May Day. I want to thank our distribution partners, John Fredericks Radio Network, America's Voice, .News, FM 99.1 and 103.9 in Chicago. Dish Channel 219. Remember, you can get us our Newsmax also with the wrap-up at the end of the day on nexus.org and translated by G News into Mandarin and blown through the firewall into China every day. Jason, want to kick off with it's the end. It's the end of the 30 days to slow the spread. It is a new month. This thing ends, right?
Yeah, and this is particularly in Texas. This is the big kickoff today. You have candidates that are back out there. You have small businesses that are open, restaurants. People are feeling the itch to get back out there and start to live their lives once again. Their article on The Hill this morning said there are upwards of 30 different states have some sort of opening. Action-packed show today. We have Jessica Anderson, who'll be on momentarily, the executive director of Heritage Action, talking about their petition to reopen America. We have Ronnie Jackson, the president's former White House doctor, who's running for Congress in Texas. He'll be on to give us the lay of the land in the Lone Star State. Darrell Issa, former and future congressman from California. He actually got the retweet from President Trump yesterday. But before we get to Jessica, I want to play Dr. Fauci. Dr. Moving the Goalposts was on with Anderson Cooper and Sanjay Gupta last night, hedging a bit about where exactly he feels we are for the reopening.
When you look at these two diverging realities, where on one hand, cases are going up, deaths are rising, and on the other hand, we're on the eve of the federal social distancing guidelines expiring and at least 31 states partially reopening in different ways. What is your message overall tonight to people who may be confused by these, sort of different realities?
Anderson, the message is to take a look at the clearly articulated guidelines for opening America again. And if you take a look at them, even though the so-called 30-day mitigation period has ended, the first component of opening America again is what we call a gateway, which means that you need to have to go down over a 14-day period, incremental or decremental decreases in the number of cases that you have before you can even think about going to phase 1. And then you stay a certain time in phase 1, and then there's another checkpoint before you go to phase 2, and another checkpoint before you go to phase 3.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call a punt. In the political affairs, PR communications realm, when you're asked a question and you go back to do a little bit of the redirect. And so here's the reality of where we are. And we talked a little bit about this at the end of the show yesterday. Americans want to get back to work. They're taking a look here, and we're seeing a lot of data, and Jack's talked about this extensively, where the cases in the U.S. are largely centralized in certain areas, the tri-state area, Wisconsin, Louisiana, certain areas around the country. It's not a nice, smooth decrease in a lot of these places. You still have some states where the case numbers are going up. But even within those different states, they're disproportionately located within nursing homes, as we saw the horrific case with the veterans home in Massachusetts. So you have Americans who are ready to get back in action. That's part of the reason why we have Jessica on this morning and a number of other folks to talk about how we reopen, how we get back to being Americans here.
Hey, Jack, this is your moment. This is the moment you've been waiting for. We've had the 30 days to slow the spread. The curve has been crashed. A lot of people out there saying, look, we were supposed to make sure the hospitals weren't inundated. The hospitals weren't inundated. We've seen all the TikToks, right? We were supposed to make sure that the curve was crashed, was smashed, was squashed, however you want to say it, and that has happened. So what's the holdup, right? And we want to bring in Jessica Anderson from the Heritage Action Group in just a second, but I want to make clear something to the audience as well, who I'm sure will be on tenterhooks wondering why we're not talking about Joe Biden and that crazy interview this morning. What started off as pretty sane, pretty fine. Mika was tough. She was tough. I'd never seen Mika that tough before. And then Joe Biden, obviously, doing pretty well at the beginning. But it went off the rails in short order. And we're going to get to that. And the reason we're going to hold it until the next block, and you're going to want to stay tuned, is because we have something here in the war room that we have used before. We used it, I think, during the impeachment stuff. We've been sort of holding back on this. And Joe Biden said something this morning that reminded Jack Maxey of this very special clip. And I guarantee you, if you don't see this leading the news by the end of the day, then the journalists out there are not doing their job. We have that coming up next. Jason, I want to throw it to you and Jessica Anderson.
Yes, Jessica, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So Heritage Action, you've been one of the groups that have been out there on the front lines pushing to get America reopened. Talk to us about the petition that you guys are out there with, the Open America petition. And then I want to start going through some of the states and what exactly you want to get accomplished here for reopening the country.
Well, what we've seen is exactly probably what you've heard, which is that there's a fever pitch amongst Americans across the country urging for the government to reopen. The economic effects of the coronavirus are very real, and we see our role at Heritage Action to urge governors to get going. And so we need to see governors, mayors begin to reopen at the state level. That includes businesses, places of worship, facilities all across their state. That's what's going to bring an economic return to this country, not more government spending, not more government handouts, but actually opening up. So our petition is pretty clear. It says, governors, please open American society. It has 7 principles that we're asking Americans to pledge their agreement to. And then once we get a critical mass of signatures, we're over 25,000 signatures right now in just the first 2 days. We're going to deliver these directly to the National Governors Association, to the president, and to those governors that are lagging behind in some of these states that are just taking too long to open.
All right, so let's get into that because we see some of the states opening up in an orderly fashion. Texas, Ohio actually is putting a little bit of a pause. We see Ron DeSantis, who I think has a pretty measured plan. Look, and even some of the Democratic governors. I think Gavin Newsom has done very well in this process. Jay Inslee from my home state of Washington, where I escaped from many years ago. But Jessica, what the hell is going on in the state of Michigan? Because Governor Half-Whitmer seems to be doing everything she can to get everyone mad at her. We have armed protesters. That's the media. I'm sure our folks in Michigan will, some of them would push back on that. What's going on with Michigan? And as Bloomberg writes this up, is this President Trump's big federalism gamble?
Well, you're exactly right. There's definitely states that are doing it right. I would add South Dakota. I would even add Colorado to that list. Florida. These states are doing it the right way. They're allowing the stay-at-home orders to expire. They're rolling out safer at-home plans, which encourage a flex of telecommuting or allows businesses to open downright. And so those are the types of states that we want to see that sort of behavior where we're heading towards economic recovery. But Governor Whitmer, she is doing it exactly wrong. Flat out, she's acting like a dictator. She's refusing to work with the Michigan legislature. She's banned things like buying seeds and traveling to visit relatives. She's doing all of that. But on the other hand, she's keeping marijuana stores open. So there's a complete dichotomy in her state over what she deems as essential versus not. And the random picking winners and losers and the lack of economic transparency is exactly my big concern with her motives. She's not doing anything to keep the people of Michigan safe. And of course, it is a politically important state for the president, and the president has every right to use the bully pulpit to encourage better behavior from governors and to frankly encourage her to open back and to follow suit of some of her neighboring states.
Jessica, Raheem Kassam, you make an interesting point. You say the random picking and choosing of winners and losers, but from what you just said after that, the political implications of this doesn't sound particularly random to me, what she's doing. I mean, you have the abortion clinics, things like that. It sounds like you have a Democratic governor using new powers or presuming powers for political motivations. Is it random, or do you think it is targeted?
Well, it can be both, right? So she's going in and specifically using her state to be a partisan political weapon against conservatives in the state and against President Trump. She's making those choices based on her interests of what she feels like is the best for her party. It's going to backfire, though, because the American people are smart enough to see this as her directly picking these winners and losers. And it can come off random because it's one business here, one business there. But the bottom line is that this is a political partisanship attack from her, and she's being it's very transparent what she's doing when you look at what she's allowed open and what she's allowed not. And when you look at the neighboring states, I mean, I think that is the most important part here, is that there are states that are doing this the right way, that are doing it the smart way. And that's the sort of direction that she needs to follow. And frankly, other governors should follow suit as well.
Jessica, this is Jack Max. Yeah, I was really disturbed yesterday when we saw the protesters show up at the Michigan Capitol. I mean, this is emblematic to me of a kind of anger that is brewing out there across the country. And let's face it, I mean, they had a couple thousand people show up there, several hundred of them who were carrying rifles, and they basically surrounded the legislature inside the chambers of the Capitol building. To me, this is how revolutions start. And I think a big part of the problem is that many people are frustrated by the fact that some places get to continue their business and some people don't. And I think also a lot of hardworking people are very distressed by this idea that people are making more money not working than working. I've talked to several people in upstate New York who can't even get hospital workers to come back to the hospital to work. They're empty right now because they're making more money sitting at home. And then when you talk about the frustration that's out there, you see Orange County, California. They just decided that Orange County, out of all the state, is going to have all their beaches closed down. You have the city fathers in Huntington Beach are suing the Governor Newsom. Same with Newport Beach. They're going to have a vote tomorrow. And I guess this May Day is feeling a little bit like we were on the verge of celebrating a Marxist holiday for a lot of people.
Well, I think there's a couple points to chase in that, which is that the incentive structure right now for workers across America is entirely backwards. So one of the things that Congress got wrong in its legislation it passed this last month was the jackup in unemployment insurance. Not only does it incentivize employers to fire their employees so that they can go get unemployment, but it added an additional $600 one-time payment that is going to those that are on UI. And so when you look at that, you see that there's actually a greater incentive to stay home, to stay on welfare, because you're getting a bigger check than what you got in the job in the first place. So how does a business then incentivize and try to bring that employer back to work when they can make more by staying home? I mean, that is completely backwards of what we need to be seeing right now. We've said from the beginning, the entire principle that should have guided a congressional response is making ways for the employer and the employee to stay connected, because we want people to have jobs after all of this is done. We want them to go back to work. We just did a poll with swing voters in 4 states, and we were asking them this exact question: do you want to go back to work, or do you want to continue government handouts? And the reality is even swing voters want to go back to work. So the fact that you have this upside down is a mess.
Jessica, we have to break here, but thank you for joining us this morning on War Room Pandemic. Just tell us 5 seconds where people can sign the petition.
HeritageAction.com.
All right, we'll be back in a minute. More War Room Pandemic and more Joe Biden. Stay tuned.
Pain, swelling, stiffness. When your hands hurt, you can't function. Until now. Introducing the new Copperfit compression gloves with Sure Grip technology to give you more power, more control, and more agility than ever. Our most advanced copper-infused compression fabric woven into an ultra-lightweight performance glove that fits like a second skin to support relief and recovery of sore muscles and painful joint stiffness. And new Sure Grip bands built in to provide a strong, non-slip grip for more power and control.
You need total control of your hands when you're doing anything with construction. Your hands are your livelihood. The Copperfit gloves are great. The grip is outstanding here with these different ribs. It makes my hand a lot more usable. It just feels like you're just ready to start the job.
The gloves have been a game changer for me. They help with flexibility and pain and soreness. They allow me to do my job even better.
Breathable wicking fabric with an open finger design for full range of motion, feel, and control.
They relieve my pain. When I grab something, I'm not in pain. The support or whatever magic these things do, I don't know what it is. It doesn't matter to me what it is, it works.
I get a lot of pain, and it can make it difficult to do the smallest thing. While I'm wearing this, I do not have any pain. I can use it on the keyboard, I can use my phone, I drive with it, I sleep with it. I love this glove.
The new Copperfit compression gloves with Sure Grip technology. Relief from painful muscle and joint soreness. Guaranteed or your money back. Call 1-800-984-5571 or on the web at getcopperfitgloves.com for only $19.99. Order right now and your shipping is free.
I tried it, I use it, I know it works.
Copperfit gloves definitely just make my life better.
I've used Copperfit before. This has helped my hands so much. These things work.
Feel better with copper-infused compression. Ask for it by name. Copperfit compression gloves.
I see what's possible instead of what's here. Others see cracked concrete, broken backboards, run-down courts. I see a way to bring pride back to communities. Art can change it all. Bright colors, a bold vision, and it can be somewhere that brings people together for games or hangouts or whatever. A place that makes people proud, like this is my neighborhood. That's why I made Project Backboard and a site with GoDaddy. How will you make your mark? Make the world you want.
I sent your new prescription to the pharmacy.
Any idea how much it will cost?
You have a choice. Insurance or GoodRx?
I have insurance.
Insurance is not what it used to be. People struggle to get their prescriptions covered, and prices keep rising. I recommend GoodRx. You get free coupons to save on your prescriptions. Compare prices to find the best discounts.
GoodRx. Smart.
Stop paying too much for your prescriptions. Download the free app today.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. Raheem Kassam, Jack Maxey, Jason Miller, Stephen K. Bannon on special assignment today. Greg Manns is in the War Room, and Dan, the producer, is back in the hot seat here. We've had Vish for a while. Now Dan's back. I wonder who's gonna be performing better.
Dan needs a flat billed hat though. Maybe like a Brooklyn sweatshirt.
We're following the hashtag War and Pandemic on Twitter every second of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you're joining in the conversation with us at hashtag War Room Pandemic. And I'm going to do a special shout out. We do a newsletter. It's free every day. The top stories you need to know, warroom.org/newsletter and warroom.org/podcast if you want to listen to this show back on your devices across all the different podcast platforms. Right, gentlemen, Joe Biden is trending, specifically hashtag I believe Biden is trending. So there goes believe all women for the Democrat Party, quite frankly. We have a lot to talk about. Joe Biden was on Morning Joe this morning. By the way, did they trail in advance what time he was going to be on? Because unlike usual for me, I was up at 6 a.m. waiting for Joe Biden to come on, and then it turned out he wasn't on till 8. Did I miss the timing or something? I thought any time between 6 and 9, so I'm just going to have to be up and waiting, right? But they did put something out early on before this interview, right, Jason?
Yeah, they started talking about, well, the Morning Joe folks started talking about there was going to be at 8 o'clock, and they can't do it too early because, Sleepy Joe is, hopefully he's sleeping. Usually for their big guests, they do it about 8. But here's, so look, I want to kind of set the stage here. This has obviously reached a fever pitch. We usually talk about the pandemic, but I mean, this is the political pandemic. This has gotten to the point where the Washington Post Ed Board had come out saying Joe Biden needs to go and address these Tara Reade allegations. Rasmussen had new polling out on this saying 34% of people believe Tara Reade, 24% believe Joe Biden, and everyone else is kind of in the middle of, people are kind of in a lot of ways desensitized now to, what's going on here. So finally, Morning Joe, and it's Mika Brzezinski who does the one-on-one interview with Joe Biden at 8 a.m. this morning, which was smart. Here's what the Biden people did that I'm watching this play out this morning. I'm like, this is a really smart play. They put out his strong statement denying it. Now, for all of his bungling, for all of his jumbling and needing to address this long ago, knowing their candidate is Joe Biden, knowing Joe Biden is very undisciplined, it's tough for him to string together a sentence or two, they put out a statement very clearly, unequivocally denying all the Tara Reade allegations, and they did that with enough time before the 8 a.m. interview, so the AP and everyone on Twitter could say the statement's out there to basically have people preconditioned before they hear the interview to say he's strongly denying it. That was very, very well done from a tactical, from a tactical standpoint. That was smart.
Very wise of the Biden campaign to recognize that their candidate is Joe Biden. Nancy Pelosi reminded them of that yesterday. Joe Biden is Joe Biden, she said. And so Joe Biden went into this interview one-on-one with Mika this morning to start. He then went on to the wider interview with the other Morning Joe hosts and MSNBC's political team as well. But let's take a listen to what Joe Biden said this morning. And specifically, we want to get onto this one clip, which I think stands out more than anything else, right? And we'll get there. We'll work through the whole thing first, Jason. But he says at one point that he doesn't want the records at the University of Delaware, which is where his Senate records are held. He says he doesn't want those released because there might be some things in there that could get into the public record that could be taken out of context when he's running for public office, right?
Right. And to be clear,
go
ahead.
Perhaps he doesn't want the university records out because we'll get to see the detail of him getting kicked out of law school for plagiarism.
So let's and I want to make sure also for folks to realize, why are we spending this time on Joe Biden? Because it's been the hottest political story that's been going on for a while. The fact that Joe is going to address this is huge. And it's not to, people are listening right now, they're pulling their hair out, or if they haven't, like Joe Biden, all they have are hair plugs left, they're like, why are we wasting time talking about Joe Biden? Because Joe Biden snatched defeat from the jaws of victory this morning and gave new life to this whole thing. So here's Joe initially denying the allegations.
No, it is not true. I'm saying unequivocally, it never happened. And it didn't. It never happened.
And during those portions, I was looking for tells. I was looking for facial tics. I was looking for coughs, for, nose wiggles, things that you try and identify in somebody who's lying down the line. But he held that firm. He was steady. He knew his words. They've obviously rehearsed this a lot. He went straight to camera and he said what he said right there. But a lot of interviewers would have left it there. A lot of people, and credit to, I do not like Morning Joe as a show, but credit to Mika Brzezinski. not only did she not leave it there, it actually got to the point in the interview where I started feeling a little sorry for Joe Biden, thinking, oh, is she now just going too hard, too much, over and over? But then she got it. She got the moment, and I had to sit back in my seat and go, actually, I learned something today. So let's play the next thing. Let's keep going. Let's see how she traps Joe Biden in this. So she says, Joe Biden then says, we got to listen to all women. Is that the one we got? Let's play it.
Look, from the very beginning, I've said believing women means taking the woman's claims seriously. When she steps forward and then vet it, look into it. That's true in this case as well. Women have a right to be heard, and the press should rigorously investigate claims they make. I'll always uphold that principle. But in the end, in every case, the truth is what matters. And in this case, the truth is the claims are false.
So the press should rigorously investigate, and we have to vet it, okay? Except Joe Biden is saying that he doesn't want the Delaware records unsealed. So how can the press vet it and rigorously investigate if they're blocking access to the details that might have it? And this is what Mika gets into next, right? She says, even if you don't want the rest of the records to come out, let's have a name search done, right? Let's search the name Tara Reade in the Delaware. Hey, something might have been filed incorrectly. It might not be in the Senate records. It might be in the University of Delaware records, right? That are sealed. Somebody may have put something in the wrong place. Somebody may have done it on purpose. Somebody may have done it by accident.
And
right?
this is why President Trump in his press conference yesterday brought up Brett Kavanaugh. This is what I call the Kavanaugh conundrum for Democrats, where they went so hard on trashing Brett Kavanaugh and destroying this innocent man in his name that now when they find themselves in the spotlight, they're in the mumble tank. They don't know how to answer. Here's Joe Biden answering Mika on this question.
How to prove a search of her name in those records?
Prove a search of her name.
Yes, and reveal anything that might be related to Tara Reade in the University of Delaware records.
There is nothing. They wouldn't. They're not there. And if it's, I don't understand the point you're trying to make.
I'm just talking about her name, not anybody else in those records. A search for that. Nothing classified with the president or anybody else. I'm just asking, why not do a search for Tara Reade's name in the University of Delaware records?
Look, I mean, who does that search?
This is where, if I had it teed up and if we had a soundboard, we would be doing the casket meme.
I can do it.
And we'll get Greg Mans from the War Room to do the casket meme. But this is where, so Raheem, you and I were texting this morning. We have kind of our group thing with Jack and Steve and everyone. We're talking about what we're going to talk about today. We're like, Biden's doing good. I think I said he's doing really damn good. Mm-hmm. And then this question. And this is where the car goes right off the Chappaquiddick Bridge, and it just becomes real problematic. I mean, this is Joe Biden. It's like, well, wait a minute. You're unequivocally saying this is all garbage, and then you're literally just dead air. Now, there's obviously a little Skype delay and some things like that, but also he's just staring straight ahead, and it got awkward.
Now, do we have the clip of what he says next about why he doesn't want the Delaware records opened?
Yes, and this is gold. This is absolute gold. This is what we've been.
This is what you need to pay attention to. If you're interested in the Tara Reade story, if you're interested in Joe Biden's story, this was the moment from this morning, and it links to pandemic, it links to impeachment, it links to China, it links to Ukraine, all wrapped in one. That's why War and Pandemic is covering Joe Biden this morning. Let's play that clip.
The first is about your University of Delaware records. Do you agree with the reporting that those records were supposed to be revealed to the public and then they were resealed for a longer period of time until after you leave, quote, public life? And if you agree with that, if that's what happened, why did that happen?
Because, look, the fact is that there's a lot of things of speeches I've made, positions I've taken, interviews that I did overseas with people, all of those things relating to my job. And the idea that they would all be made public in the fact while I was running for public office, they could be really taken out of context. Their papers are position papers. They are documents that existed and that when I, for example, when I met with Putin or when I met with whomever, and all of that to be fodder in a campaign at this time, I don't know of anybody who's done anything like that.
Joe Biden doesn't want his records from when he served the public to be made public when he's running for public office. That's what we just heard. And I want to bring Jack Maxey on this. Very quickly, Jack, what's the next clip we're about to play?
The next clip we're going to play is the buried lead from his Council on Foreign Relations debacle of about a year and a half ago. Remember, the media showed him saying that, you don't want to fire the prosecutor, we're not going to give you $1 billion. Well, here's the buried lead from the end. This is a guy who is deep up to his neck with the Communist Party of China, and I want answers, and I expect the media to ask.
Let's play the clip.
Yep, in this one, this is the
YouTube from this morning, the Council on Foreign Relations. In fact, you know what we'll do? We'll leave a cliffhanger here. When we come back from the break, we're going to play this clip. Joe Biden, Council on Foreign Relations, the buried lead. Remember during the impeachment, they showed, hey, I went and I told the prosecutor, you're not going to get your $1 billion. But there's another clip that Jack Maxey found back then, and we've been keeping it in the tank. And we're going to play it next here on War Room Pandemic. Joe Biden says there may be things of meetings he had and positions he took that could be taken out of context. I wonder who he's talking about. And guess what? It ain't Putin. We'll be right back.
I'm Nick Bolton, and these days...
Hey there.
Hey there. It seems everybody has a pair of tactical sunglasses.
Good morning.
Morning. But what if you already wear glasses? Then you need these flip-up tack glasses. These new glasses fit right over your existing eyewear to give you all the benefits of our tack glasses while you comfortably wear your regular glasses. And watch this. When you don't need them, the lenses flip up and out of the way. Then snap right back into place when it gets bright again. Plus, like all tack glasses, flip-up tack glasses feature Bell & Howell light filtering technology that makes invisible objects suddenly become visible. But don't take my word for it. Check out what these people had to say. Take a look at the screen and tell me what you see.
Nothing. Just blank.
Nothing. There's nothing there.
Absolutely nothing.
Flip down those tack glasses and look again.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. There was nothing, and then it just appears an American eagle. It's absolutely insane.
Can you read that fine print on the bottom right there?
Land of the free and home of the brave. God bless America.
Whether you're on the trail or on the golf course, on the water, or on the slopes. With flip-up tack glasses, you'll always see clearly without any glare. There's just nothing like them on the market today. Here you go, buddy.
Thanks, Nick.
Act now to get your flip-up tack glasses for just $19.99, and we'll even ship them to you free. Only tack glasses feature the precision and quality of genuine Bell & Howell lenses, and they're backed by our lifetime guarantee. But wait, order today and you can get a second pair. Just pay a separate fee. You get it all, plus free shipping. Here's how to order.
To get your flip-up tack glasses for only $19.99 with free shipping, call 1-800-284-4127. That's 1-800-284-4127, or visit us online at flipupglasses.com. That's 1-800-284-4127, or visit us at flipupglasses.com. Call or log on now.
Have you or a loved one taken Zantac or another heartburn medication and developed cancer? You may be entitled to compensation. The FDA just announced that it is requesting manufacturers withdraw from the market all prescription and over-the-counter ranitidine heartburn medications, commonly known by the brand name Zantac. This is the latest step in an ongoing investigation of a contaminant known as NDMA in ranitidine heartburn medications. NDMA is a chemical that the FDA and World Health Organization both classify as cancer-causing. Now, prior to this announcement, CVS and Walgreens pulled Zantac from their shelves, citing the link between Zantac, NDMA, and cancer. If you or a loved one have taken Zantac or another heartburn medication and developed cancer, how do you fight for the compensation you deserve? You choose the right legal team that has the experience, support staff, and resources to seek the most compensation for your injuries. Call for more information and a free case review.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to War Room Pandemic, Friday, May the 1st, the year of our Lord, 2020. Here in, what is it now, Fort Defiance? Is it Fort Defiance? We're in Fort Defiance. Raheem Kassam standing in for Stephen K. Bannon, who's on special assignment, Jason Miller, Jack Maxey in studio. We're going to have former White House Cabinet Secretary Bill McGinley, one of our favorites from the War Room impeachment show from last year, joining us in just a moment to talk about the implications and ramifications for the political season that lies ahead because of the coronavirus pandemic. But before the break, we left you with a cliffhanger. I want to reset on that real quick. Jason, when Joe Biden was on with Mika Brzezinski and Morning Joe this morning, there was a buried lead in that interview that I think is going to get more traction over the course of the day. I hope to high heaven that it's leading on Tucker and Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham shows tonight. This is him saying why he doesn't want the Delaware records released. So let's hear again what he had to say, and then let's hear why he might be scared.
The first is about your University of Delaware records. Do you agree with the reporting that those records were supposed to be revealed to the public and then they were resealed for a longer period of time until after you leave, quote, public life? And if you agree with that, if that's what happened, why did that happen?
Because, look, the fact is that there's a lot of things of speeches I've made, positions I've taken, interviews that I did overseas with people, all of those things relating to my job. And the idea that they would all be made public in the fact while I was running for public office, they could be really taken out of context. Their papers are position papers. They are documents that existed and that when for example, when I met with Putin or when I met with whomever, and all of that to be fodder in a campaign at this time. I don't know of anybody who's done anything like that.
Yes, Joe, you're running to be president of the United States. The public might want to scrutinize your record. They might want to see what you did with your time being paid by the public to represent the public. You don't know anybody that's done that before? Try every single person that's ever run for president of the United States.
So here, look, from the communications aspect, you're doing your war gaming with Joe Biden. Here's what you're going to say. When any question regarding Tara Reade, the answer is, these are false. I'm an open book. Anything to help your investigation, anything to say it. I believe women, they should have their opportunity to be heard. I also have the right to defend myself. If you want to go and look through some records or you want to run a search on her name, anything. I'm an open book. End of story. And guess what? Joe Biden then could have gone back to sleep. He could have gone to Golden Corral, gotten his plate of green Jell-O, and then gone back to sleep. This would have been done for the day, but he couldn't resist over answering this question. Now this thing is huge. And let's go to the point. And Jack, got to give you credit on this for finding this. And Jack Maxey is the one who broke this way back in the War Room impeachment days. This, my friends, is why Joe Biden is so terrified about what's in those Delaware records.
For China. I've spent a lot of time. Apparently, I was told by the folks of state, I've spent more time in private meetings with Xi Jinping than any world leader. I have 25 hours of private dinners with him, just he and I, and one interpreter.
Let's just play that once again because we missed the beginning of that. This is from the Council on Foreign Relations. This is the same thing.
Time. Apparently, I was told by the folks of state, I've spent more time in private meetings with Xi Jinping than any world leader. I have 25 hours of private dinners with him, just he and I, and one interpreter.
And one interpreter, Jack, was that an interpreter working for the United States?
No, I don't believe that was. I believe that was a Chinese communist interpreter. And let's all remember, do you remember when the mainstream media went after Donald Trump and called him a traitor for spending 2.5 minutes alone with Putin during the Helsinki conference, and they demanded transcripts and everything else? Let's see if you can be as aggressive in demanding transcripts from the quisling Biden, whose son got $1.5 billion from the Chinese National Bank shortly after one of those meetings.
See, he says Putin there, but I believe Putin's a red herring in that. He's throwing in Putin, so all the journalists will go, when they finally wake up and realize what he said this morning, they'll go and such, oh, what did you talk to Putin about? This isn't about Putin. This is about Xi Jinping. This is about the Chinese Communist Party. We know of the Biden familial ties there, and that's, in my mind, what he's afraid might come out.
And again, this is Joe Biden not saying that he has had meetings with Xi Jinping. This is not Joe Biden saying he ranks as one of the U.S. officials to have had the most. He's saying I've had more one-on-one meetings with Xi Jinping than anyone else in the entire United States. But he doesn't want that information to come forward.
And maybe that's not. Maybe those 25 hours of meetings are not in the Delaware records. We're just saying, hey, he's said on the record that he's had hours and hours of meetings. He's said that. He's bragged about it. He's run on that. He's made money from the Council on Foreign Relations speeches, bragging about that the same way he bragged about getting the prosecutor fired. And now he's out there saying, journalists should rigorously investigate things, but we're not going to unseal the documents. You can't actually go and look at them because I can't have anything related to positions, meetings, and what else? Interviews abroad that he said coming out.
Here's the thing. Any of the qualifications as far as here's what you can see, here's what you can't see, you let your campaign counsel or the Delaware Council do that. Say, hey, this is on national security grounds. This has to do with President Obama, who's not part of this campaign, or you come up with your excuse. You let the lawyers go and do that. You don't Joe Biden get up there and try to adjudicate this on national TV while you're talking about these allegations that are coming at you.
Yeah. Do we have our next guest on yet? We're waiting to connect to former White House Cabinet Secretary Bill McGinley. We're still working on technical issues on that. Jack Maxey.
Let's toss back in on Joe Biden, okay? Because one of the
reasons,
I've got
all the time in the world for that.
One of the things that I think is so important, okay? He may be right, he may be wrong about Tara Reade, and that deserves looking into, okay? And Republicans, Democrats, they all can do bad things in that regard, and they should all be punished. But the clear thing for the danger of the country is a man who has a personal, private, unrecorded 25-hour special relationship with the head of the CCP, the modern equivalent of the Nazis. This is like an American vice president going and sitting down with with Adolf Hitler. Let's be real. In 1938 and spending 25 hours and then not telling the American people what was discussed. This is a betrayal on a fundamental level.
Okay, let me play, some mainstream journalist here for you, Jack, and hold you to account for that. You just compared the Chinese president to Adolf Hitler. Defend it.
Well, let's look at the parallels. There is no freedom of speech. There is no freedom of assembly. They have concentration camps for people who are in opposition to the government. In some ways, I would say it is more extensive than the terror that went on inside Nazi Germany prior to the war, because they now have the evil apparatus of modern technology to apply all of this terror upon their own people and upon the world. And they've done that in cooperation, quite frankly, with some of our biggest Silicon Valley patriots. We need to hold these people accountable because they have supported an evil regime that is responsible for murder, responsible for harvesting organs from people, responsible for spreading this disease to the entire world and putting us on our knees. The free people need to stand up, and we need to show the Communist Party of China that we will not be cowed.
We talk about often and history recalls often the people who placated and appeased the Nazis as they were ascendant to power in the 1930s. You have here Joe Biden bragging in this clip, and maybe we'll even play that clip again, bragging about 25 hours of private meetings with one interpreter. We don't know who that is yet, but I'm skeptical that it was anybody who was able to feed information back to the US government about what took place in those meetings. He's now running for president, and he now says he doesn't want those details released. He now says that there are interviews and meetings and positions that he took while in public office that he doesn't want made public because, quote, they could be taken out of context. And I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but this bears repeating. And it bears repeating until November the 3rd. It bears repeating until you're blue in the face, and it bears repeating until people around the country recognize that they are being systematically lied to by Joe Biden, by the Democrats, and by the quisling media who appeases them.
Well, let's look at the progression of Joe Biden very quickly. He went from sleepy Joe Biden, then with Tara Reid, he went to creepy Joe Biden, and now with this revelation, it's quisling Joe Biden.
Wow.
I'll bring this back to Beijing Biden. Let's play another clip of Joe Biden from this morning with Mika.
And we've walked away. Look at what's happened with regard to this pandemic. The pandemic is that the president has no intercourse whatsoever with the rest of the country, the world. I'm dealing with these things.
Sorry,
the president has no what?
It was Joe Biden saying that the president has no intercourse with the rest of the country. It's just Joe Biden is going to.
Biden's going to Biden.
Biden's going to Biden. But let's go back to look. I want to play this clip again about Biden boasting of the 25 hours of private meetings with Xi Jinping, because this is so remarkable. And Jack, this was such a great find going back to the War Room impeachment days, and this blew up and became a big thing, and everyone was playing it. But everything comes full circle. The War Room impeachment, the War Room 2020, the War Room pandemic, it all comes back to Joe Biden and this globalist agenda. And again, why does this become such a big deal with Joe Biden? This is the Hillary Clinton problem. This is where President Trump is the change agent and Joe Biden is the 20, 30, 40 years of insider policy that have gotten us to this bad place.
But remember, Biden and impeachment and this whole thing that took place vis-a-vis Ukraine was a lot of the stuff we heard through that whole process was a cover for what Biden had done, a cover for what Hunter Biden had been doing. They utilized and leveraged the apparatus of the state to attack a sitting president, effectively attempting to remove him from office because they were covering, and Nancy Pelosi and her team were covering for Joe Biden. Somehow, through the whole thing, the recklessness and the abandon with which Michael Bloomberg and his campaign team ran their upstart $30 trillion campaign against him, Biden still pulled through at the end of the day, and so we're hearing this once again. But I recognize that with all the things that change over the course of the news headlines and how quickly the news cycle changes and adapts, don't forget the core narratives. Look for the signal through the noise. Here's the signal. Let's go back to it.
For China, I've spent a lot of time. Apparently, I was told by the folks at State, I've spent more time in private meetings with Xi Jinping than any world leader. I have 25 hours of private dinners with him, just he and I, and one interpreter.
You know, one of the things just came to mind there. We said according to the people at State.
Yeah.
We're talking about all of Joe Biden's records. Does State also have all the records? And we've seen the Republican senators trying to get to the bottom of the Burisma dealings. Are we sure that we have all the records from State talking about Joe Biden? Did all of those get turned over to Delaware, to anywhere else from the Senate files? That's a good question, because the other thing, too, for all the talk about President Trump having these one-on-one meetings, or he goes and sits down with Putin himself and the media starts pulling their hair out, what were the folks at State internally saying to each other about, here's crazy Joe? You're going to tell me that the State guys, or even over at Langley, that they weren't listening to some of these conversations? They don't have a good idea of what was said. So these are all things we need to get in. 25 hours, one-on-one, Xi Jinping, and he doesn't want it to come out. That's the signal, folks.
Calling Judicial Watch for a Freedom of Information Act search.
You got to text Tom Fitton that right now. We got Biden not only didn't handle, by the end of that interview with Mika Brzezinski this morning, the Tara Reid questions. He's raised a whole lot more. We're here to answer some of them, or do our best at least to guide the conversation. War Room Pandemic, Jack Maxey, Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam, back in just a moment.
Brett Favre, legendary quarterback. Jerry Rice, legendary wide receiver.
You ready for your weekly meeting?
Yeah, we're ready.
Let's do this.
They stacked the deck.
When legends play, they wear CopperFit Advanced Back Pro. CopperFit's best-selling compression back support just got better with new double-band adjustable supports for customizable compression when you need it most.
Since I put this on, I feel so much better. The core is the most important thing. To know that I'm stabilized here. Whatever I'm doing, I can give it 100%.
4 built-in stabilizing supports designed to improve posture and help reduce lower back stress and strain.
You have back pain and it's affecting your everyday life. You do something. If you can find something to help you get back out and be active like CopperFit, go for it. Absolutely. Do not give up.
A high-performance compression fabric infused with the powerful properties of copper, 360-degree flexible mobility, and lightweight, durable construction.
Nothing more painful than having back pains. If you're aching, if you feel like you can't work out anymore, you can. And that's with CopperFit. It's for all of us who still want to be active, still want to compete. Way to go. That's what I'm talking about. Man, this really does feel good. It feels to me like the fountain of youth.
CopperFit's best-selling back support just got bigger, badder, and better. Or call 1-800-944-5851. Or on the web at advancedbackpro.com. Get yours now for only $19.99.
This does feel good. That's what I've been saying. You think it was fair? It was fun.
Play for the love of the game.
CopperFit, live limitless.
I'm Nick Bolton, and these days...
Hey there.
Hey there. It seems everybody has a pair of tactical sunglasses.
Good morning.
Morning. But what if you already wear glasses? Then you need these flip-up tack glasses. These new glasses fit right over your existing eyewear to give you all the benefits of our tack glasses while you comfortably wear your regular glasses. Plus, like all tack glasses, flip-up tack glasses feature Bell & Howell light filtering technology that makes invisible objects suddenly become visible. There's just nothing like them on the market today. Here you go, buddy.
Thanks, Nick.
Act now to get your flip-up tack glasses for just $19.99, and we'll even ship them to you free. But wait, order today and you can get a second pair. Just pay a separate fee. Here's how to order.
Call 1-800-284-4127 or go to flipupglasses.com. That's 1-800-284-4127 or order online at flipupglasses.com.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. Jason Miller, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam, and we will be hopefully momentarily joined by former White House Cabinet Secretary Bill McGinley. A few technical problems on our end. If you're watching the stream on Facebook, something's happening. Get on over to YouTube or to Periscope. We're everywhere with the purpose designed in mind that somebody might not like what we're saying and might want to pull it down. And so we put it in all sorts of different places for you to get. It's at warroom.org, and you can get all the podcasts, everything there after the show as well. We have former White House Cabinet Secretary Bill McGinley joining us on the line now. Bill, do you hear us?
I can hear you. It's so good to hear your melodious voice.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bill, for sticking with us through those technical difficulties. It actually gave us a little bit more of a chance to expand on the Creepy Joe thing from this morning. And I wondered, firstly, if you had any thoughts, if you had seen the Joe Biden interview with Morning Joe this morning, if you had any thoughts on that, Bill.
I didn't see it, but I heard a lot of your commentary, and I think it just kind of frames out the way that I've been kind of viewing Joe Biden's candidacy, which is the legend of Joe Biden versus the real Joe Biden. You know, the Democrats have tried to manufacture this Joe Biden who's going to be all things to all voters. But once you put him out in the real world, all of that comes crumbling down. You know, the Democrats are suffering from trying to live up to the standards that they set for conservatives and Republicans. And clearly they're failing on each and every one of the factors that they laid out, whether it was for now Justice Kavanaugh or other people who they've gone after. It warms my heart to hear people like Nancy Pelosi and others talk about due process when they didn't seem to be too concerned about that in other contexts. So,
Well, Bill, I want to jump right in. One of the reasons we want to have you on, obviously, in addition to having been the White House cabinet secretary under President Trump, for being a brilliant lawyer where you are now, a long history in campaign politics and understanding conventions. There have been a number of articles in the last 24, 48 hours about the state of the conventions. Obviously, the Democrats, it doesn't look like Milwaukee is going to happen, at least as of right now. But we're seeing the RNC saying that they're definitely moving ahead with the convention in Charlotte. Where do you think we are as far as the conventions, and what do you think is going to happen for both the Democrats and Republicans?
I think it's too early to tell whether you're going to have any sort of convention that resembles what we've seen over the past couple of decades, where you have 2,000 to 4,000 delegates seated right next to each other on the floor of the convention, plus thousands of people in the stands. It's important to remember that a convention not only attracts the delegates, alternate delegates, and all of the party officials in campaigns, they pull in tens of thousands of people who attend these events, plus all the ancillary parties and everything else. So in a way, it's kind of like a multi-million-dollar company that you stand up. The Democrats were originally slated to go in July, but have bumped their convention to August because they're trying to say it's going to give them a better shot of actually holding it. The information coming out of the DNC and the campaign, they don't think they're going to be able to host it. The one interesting fact that they're not talking about, they're trying to pin it on social distancing and the virus, is that their fundraising is anemic. You know, way back in the early 2000s, national conventions used to actually receive public financing, taxpayer dollars, to be put on, and that was stricken from the federal election laws. Now, every convention has to be paid for with private dollars raised by both the national party committees and the host committees. If you look at the fundraising numbers for the DNC, they are beyond anemic. In fact, I think their fundraising number for March was around $37 million in March, and half of that was a transfer from Mike Bloomberg's ill-fated campaign. So the Democrats have not been able to raise the money necessary not only to support their presumptive nominee, they haven't raised the money necessary to put on a robust national convention. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're hearing a lot of talk about having a virtual convention headquartered in Milwaukee as opposed to your normal convention.
Bill, I want to take you back here to D.C. for a moment. So we have the Capitol physician saying that there's not enough tests for all senators, which I'm not quite sure how this is. I mean, again, it's not like they haven't had time to prepare for this. I mean, you have Mayor Garcetti in Los Angeles saying that anyone who wants a test in Los Angeles County can get one and for free. But then here in the nation's capital, the Capitol physician is saying not enough tests for all senators. And even when if you aren't feeling well, you do get tested. It'll take 2 days to get this returned. This comes back to the issue of remote voting. Do you think we get to a point of remote voting here? And should the House and the Senate be back in the Capitol working right now?
I think Congress should be back in session and voting. And on the issue of remote voting, it can't be a partisan play where the majority runs roughshod over the minority. Speaker Pelosi and Leader Hoyer are going to have to work with Kevin McCarthy and Whip Scalise to try and figure out the procedures that do it. Because whatever procedures for remote voting that they put in place, there's going to have to be confidence by all members of the House of Representatives that it's going to be fair, transparent, and trustworthy. And I think trying to make a partisan play on that issue is very ill-wise. I mean, I think that's something that they shouldn't do. It should be a bipartisan solution to that. In terms of the testing on the Senate side, I agree with your surprise that the 100 elected representatives from the 50 states should have access to testing so that they can conduct the people's business. We're in the middle of a pandemic. There's a lot of things that are happening, and we need them working, not doing something else.
Bill, this is Jack Maxey. Quick question. Is there a provision in the Constitution for those people to be able to vote remotely? I thought they had to be present.
Well, it depends upon what you're going to define as a quorum. So, for example, in a lot of parliamentary rules can make provisions for, the voting by electronic device. And so there is some wiggle room there. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot of constitutional considerations that need to come into play here because you need to satisfy the constitutional requirements for enacting legislation. And members of Congress having a quorum in order to conduct the people's business is one of those.
Bill McGinley, we got to leave it there. We're up against a hard break, but I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning on War and Pandemic. Thanks for sticking through all of producer Dan's issues this morning, and we're very grateful to have you, as ever, former White House Cabinet Secretary Bill McGinley. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
All right, when we come back, episode 154 of War and Pandemic with, is it Dr. Admiral or is it Admiral Doctor?
We need to get to that. I always call him Ronnie.
Ronnie Jackson will be joining us. We want to get more out of Jack Maxey on Remdesivir. What is Operation, what is it, Warp Speed? We'll be right back discussing all of that and more. War and Pandemic after this.
Could someone be stealing your identity or hacking into your phone or laptop? It can actually happen from across the room or from thousands of miles away. Or a company you trust with your personal information could be breached. Your information is in more places than ever. You need more protection than ever. That's why Norton and LifeLock are now part of one company, providing an all-in-one membership for your cyber safety. Norton 360 with LifeLock gives you identity theft protection, device security, a VPN for online privacy, and more. Cyber criminals keep looking for new ways to steal your personal information. You might not even know it until it's too late.
Someone filed my taxes under my name. $6,000 was sent to some anonymous person,